The vertical curves and angles of the most precipitous torrents he traces with the same rigid fidelity, swooping down the inclines of cascades, dropping sheer over dizzy falls amid the spray, and ascending with the same fearlessness and ease, seldom seeking to lessen the steepness of the acclivity by beginning to ascend before reaching the base of the fall. No matter it may be several hundred feet in height, he holds straight on as if about to dash headlong into throng of booming rockets and darts abruptly upward, and after alighting at the top of the precipice to rest a moment, proceeds to feed and sing. His flight is solid and impetuous, without any intermission of wing beats, one homogeneous buzz like that of a laden bee on its way home. And while thus buzzing freely from fall to fall, he is frequently heard giving utterance to a long, outdrawn train of unmodulated notes, in no way connected with his song, but corresponding closely with his flight and a sustained vigor. Were the flights of all the ouzels in the Sierra traced on a chart, they would indicate the direction of the flow, so that an entire system of ancient glaciers from out the period of breaking up the ice sheet until near the close of the glacial winter, because the streams which the ouzels so rigidly follow are, with the unimportant exceptions of a few side tributaries, all flowing in channels eroded for them out by the solid flank of the range by the vanished glaciers, the streams tracing the ancient glaciers, the ouzels tracing the streams. Nor do we find so complete compliance to glacial conditions in the life of any other mountain bird or animal, or any trace of any kind. Bears it frequently expect the pathways laid down by glaciers, as they are the easiest to travel. They often find them and cross over them from canyon to canyon. So also most of the birds trace the moraines to some extent because the forests are growing on them, but they wander far, crossing the canyons from grove to grove, and draw exceedingly angular and complicated courses. The ouzel's nest is one of the most extraordinary pieces of bird architecture I ever saw, odd and novel in design, perfectly fresh and beautiful, and in every way worthy of the genius of the little builder. It is about a foot in diameter, round and bossy in outline, with a neatly arched opening near the bottom, somewhat like an old-fashioned brick oven or Hottentot's hut. It is built almost exclusively of green and yellow mosses, chiefly the beautiful fronded hypium that covers the rocks and old drift logs in the vicinity of waterfalls. These are deftly interwoven and felted together into a charming little hut, and so situated that many of the outer mosses continue to flourish as if they had not been plucked. A few fine silky stemmed grasses are occasionally found interwoven with mosses, but with the exception of a thin layer lining the floor, their presence seems too accidental, as they are a species found glowing with mosses and are probably plucked with them. The site chosen for this curious mansion is unusually some little rock shelf within reach of the lighter particles of the spray of a waterfall, so that its walls are kept green and growing, at least during the time of high water. No harsh lines are presented by any portion of the nest as seen in place, but when removed from its shelf, the back and bottom, and sometimes a portion of the top, it's found quite sharply angular. Because of it, it is made to conform to the surface of the rock upon which and against which it is built. The little architect always taking advantage of slight crevices and protuberances that made chance to offer to render his structure stable by means of a kind of gripping and dovetailing. In choosing a building spot, concealment does not seem to be taken into consideration. Yet, notwithstanding the nest is large and guileless exposed to view, it is far from being easily detected, chiefly because it swells forward like any other bulging moss cushion, growing naturally in such situations. There is more especially the case where the nest is kept fresh by drip being well sprinkled. Sometimes these romantic little huts have their beauty enhanced by rock ferns and grasses that spring up and around the mossy walls, or in front of the door sill dripping with crystal beads. Furthermore, at certain hours of the day when the sunshine is poured down at the required angle, the whole mass of the spray enveloping the fairy establishment is brilliantly irised, and it is so thorough, so glorious a rainbow atmosphere at this that some of our blessed ovals obtain their first peep at the world. Ozel seemed so completely part and parcel of the streams they inhabit, they scarce suggest any other origin than the streams themselves, and one might almost be pardoned in fancying they come direct from the living waters. Like flowers from the ground, at least from whatever cause it never occurred to me to look for their nest until more than a year after I had made the acquaintance of the birds themselves. Although I found one of the very day on the began the search and making my way from Yosemite to the glaciers at the head of the Merced and Tuolumne rivers, I camped in a particularly wild and romantic portion of the Nevada Canyon, where in previous excursions I had never failed to enjoy the company of my favorites, who were attracted here no doubt by the safe nesting places in the shelving rocks, and by the abundance of food and failing water. The river for miles above and below consists of a succession of small falls from 6 to 60 feet, connected by flat plume-like cascades that go flashing from fall to fall, free and almost channelless over waving folds of glacier-polished granite. On the south side of one of the falls, that portion of the precipice which is bathed by spray presents a series of little shells and tablets caused by the development of planes of cleavage and granite, and by consequence of the falls of masses through the action of the water. Now here, said I, of all places, is the most charming spot for an old nest. Then carefully scanning the fretted face of the precipice through the spray, I at length noticed a yellowish moss cushion growing on the edge of the level tablet within 5 or 6 feet of the outer folds of the falls. But apart from the fact of its being situated where one rock, when acquainted with its lives of ovals, would fancy an oval nest ought to be, there was nothing in its appearance visible at first sight to distinguish it from the other bosses, rock mosses, eminently situated with reference to perennial spray. And it was not until I had scrutinized it again and again, and had removed my shoes and stockings and crept along the face of the rock within 8 or 10 feet of it, that I could decide certainly whether it was a nest or a natural growth. In these moss huts, 3 or 4 eggs are laid, white like foam bubbles, and well may the little birds hatched from them sing water songs, where they hear them all their lives, and even before they are born. I have often observed the young just out of the nest making their odd gestures and seeming in every way as much at home in their experienced parents like the young bees on their first excursions to the flower fields. No amount of familiarity with people and their ways seems to change them in the least. To all appearances, their behavior is just the same on seeing a man for the first time as they have seen him frequently.